There are different ways of talking to angels in finding the ground that roots us, in understanding how we can transcend the human condition. One way, and to listen to Beethoven, is to understand how he wrote the Moonlight Sonata. If you can understand why this very well-known piece stems from the first couple of measures of the piece, and why the entire sonata, the second and third movements, just simply vary those first measures, you can then understand how Beethoven thought, how he derived from the simplest of melodies the most transcendent of compositions. How can you take nothing and make it into something? This is what Beethoven does with the glory of the Moonlight Sonata. Of course, he didn't call it the Moonlight Sonata. Simply, for him, it was the Sonata quasi una fantasia, almost half a fantasia, a fantasy. Beneath the accompaniment is actually the melody. Those descending notes which you hear are actually the melody. Although they're in the left hand of this piece, they become in the right hand of the second movement. And again, in the third movement, they stay in the left hand. So, ironically, he's reversed it and put the accompaniment into the top hand and the melody into the left hand. The great German musicologist Heinrich Schenker had a way of breaking down pieces into their fundamental structure, which he called the Ursatz, stripping them of their rhythm and their superficial ornamentation, their foreground, in other words, in order to get to the truth of the music, to the background. Schenker believed that meaning lay in structure rather than the superficial impositions on the music by the romantic imaginations of performers. So rather than Moonlight, here it's really the left hand that Schenker exposed. And this became the guide for an entire new generation of German musicians, resulting in a more minimalist and technically clean approach to classical music. In some ways, you could say that in Beethoven, his end is in his beginning. And of course, the ultimate end of his music is maybe the beginning of it. T.S. Eliot said in the Four Quartets, in East Coker, number 2 of the Four Quartets, "In my beginning is my end. In succession, houses rise and fall, crumble, are extended, are removed, destroyed, restored, or in their place is an open field, or a factory, or a bypass, old stone to new building, old timber to new fires." This is true in Shakespeare also. All of his plays are contained in small in their first scenes. And so, T.S. Eliot wrote, "In my beginning is my end." He ends the poem with, "In my end is my beginning."